The rain in Chicago didn't wash things clean. It just made the asphalt slick and turned the neon signs of the corner bodegas into bleeding smears of red and blue. Standing inside the cramped, fluorescent-lit break room of the local grocery hub, the air smelled of stale coffee, industrial floor cleaner, and the heavy, suffocating scent of cheap cologne. "If I catch you slipping one more time, you're done," Damien's voice sliced through the hum of the vending machines. He was leaning against the doorframe, his arms crossed over a tailored shirt that looked far too expensive for a grocery store manager. He adjusted his watch, looking at the young man standing opposite him with a cold, detached amusement. "I don't care about your circumstances. I don't care about your grades. I care about my inventory, and right now, your head isn't in the game." Isaac didn't look up from his hands, which were stained with the dark ink of a pricing gun. He was 18, with shoulders that were perpetually hunched, as if trying to carry the weight of the entire ceiling. "It won't happen again, sir. I was just adjusting the schedule for the weekend shift." "I don't give second chances to people who can't even keep their personal lives off the clock," Damien said, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a low, intimidating purr. "And remember who put in a good word for you here. If you make me look bad, it doesn't just affect your paycheck, it affects everything." Before Isaac could respond, the heavy metal door to the break room swung open, clanging loudly against the drywall. Naomi stood in the doorway, her jacket soaked from the downpour outside, her breathing ragged. She didn't look at Damien. Her eyes pinned Isaac to the spot. "You need to leave," Naomi said, her voice trembling but fierce. "Right now, Isaac. Don't say another word." Damien raised an eyebrow, a slow, malicious smile spreading across his face. "Well, well, look what the storm dragged in. Are we hosting a social club in my break room now?" "We're leaving," Naomi repeated, grabbing Isaac by the sleeve of his vest, her fingers digging into the fabric. She could feel the tension radiating off him, the sheer panic in his eyes. She knew exactly what was at stake. She knew that if Damien pressed that button, if the truth of what had happened outside on the street spilled into this room, Isaac's entire life would shatter into pieces before midnight. But as she pulled him toward the exit, she caught sight of a small, silver keychain lying on the break room table, a cheap trinket shaped like a Ferris wheel, missing its clasp. It belonged to Bianca. Naomi's heart dropped into her stomach. It was already too late. The trap had been set, and she was walking right into it, completely unaware that the real betrayal hadn't even begun yet. Before we dive deeper into the tangled web of secrets that tore a neighborhood apart, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another gripping story. To understand how Naomi found herself standing in that suffocating break room, gambling with the future of the boy she loved, you have to go back to the beginning of the summer. The neighborhood was a sprawling grid of brick two-flats and cracked pavements, a place where everyone knew your business before you even did. It was the kind of community where generation after generation stayed put, bound by tradition, lack of money, or sheer comfort. For Naomi and Bianca, the world had always been defined by their friendship. They had been inseparable since kindergarten, sharing everything from melted popsicles on the front stoop to the deepest, darkest secrets of adolescence. Naomi was 19 now, a practical, fiercely protective soul who worked part-time at the local library while helping her single mother manage the rising rent. She was the anchor, the one who looked at the world with a sober, realistic gaze. Bianca, on the other hand, was a thunderstorm wrapped in a sundress. At 19, Bianca was vibrant, impulsive, and fiercely dramatic. Her family had a bit more cushion than Naomi's, which gave Bianca the luxury of being reckless. When Bianca wanted something, the rest of the world was expected to move out of her way. And then there was Isaac. Isaac was 18, a high school senior who lived 3 doors down from Naomi. He was brilliant in a quiet, unassuming way. The kind of guy who spent his Friday nights studying under the yellow glow of a desk lamp while the rest of the neighborhood was out partying. His parents were proud, hard-working people who ran a struggling tailoring business, and they couldn't afford to send him to college. But Isaac had a ticket out, a full-ride academic scholarship to an elite university out east. It was a miracle, a once-in-a-lifetime escape hatch. But there was a catch that nobody else knew. The scholarship covered tuition, but it didn't cover the steep cost of room, board, and mandatory fees. To bridge that massive financial gap, Isaac worked 40 hours a week at the neighborhood grocery hub, saving every single penny. Without that after-school job, the scholarship was useless. He would be stuck in the neighborhood forever. Naomi had fallen for Isaac slowly, over years of shared walks home in the twilight, talking about everything and nothing. They had a quiet language all their own, built on mutual respect and shared struggles. But Bianca had fallen for Isaac like a meteor hitting the earth. To Bianca, Isaac was a prize, a handsome, mysterious challenge that she decided she must have. She didn't see the exhaustion in his eyes. She just saw a boy she wanted to claim. The trouble began on a stifling Tuesday in July. Naomi was sitting on her front porch, watching the heat rise from the asphalt, when Isaac walked past. He looked pale, his hands trembling as he clutched a heavy envelope. "Isaac?" Naomi called out, stepping down the stairs. "Are you okay?" He looked up, a mixture of terror and absolute exhilaration on his face. He pulled her into the shadow of the alleyway between their houses and opened the envelope. It was the final acceptance letter, confirming the full ride. But as Naomi read through the fine print, her eyes widened at the thousands of dollars required for housing by the end of August. "My parents can't pay this, Naomi," Isaac whispered, his voice cracking. "If I ask them, they'll try to take out a loan they can't afford, and it'll ruin them. I have to earn every cent of this deposit myself. I've been taking every extra shift Damien offers me at the store. I just have to keep my head down and work." "You can do this, Isaac," Naomi said softly, reaching out to touch his arm. The electricity between them in that moment was undeniable. Isaac looked at her, his eyes softening, and for a second, the distance between them vanished. He leaned in, just a fraction, and Naomi felt her breath catch. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Naomi," he murmured. "You're the only one who really gets it." They didn't notice the shadow hovering at the end of the alley. Bianca had been walking up the street, a box of pastries in her hand, intending to surprise Naomi. Instead, she saw them. She saw the way Isaac looked at Naomi, a look he had never given Bianca despite all her flirting. A toxic, burning jealousy flared up in Bianca's chest. She took a step back, her knuckles turning white around the pastry box. She didn't see two friends sharing a moment of relief. She saw a betrayal. And as she turned on her heel and stormed away, Naomi was totally unaware that this innocent moment of shared hope had just lit a fuse that would soon threaten to blow all their lives apart. Within 48 hours, the atmosphere in their friend group shifted dramatically. Bianca didn't confront Naomi directly. Instead, she began a subtle, vicious campaign. She started hosting small get-togethers at her house, intentionally leaving Naomi out. She dropped hints to their mutual friends that Naomi was sneaky, that she was trying to steal things that didn't belong to her. Naomi felt the chill immediately. Friends she had known for years suddenly became quiet when she walked into the local diner. Text messages went unanswered. When she asked Bianca what was wrong, Bianca just gave her a cold, sugary smile. "Nothing's wrong, Naomi. We're just all really busy. Unlike some people, we have things to do." But the real complication lay in the delicate hierarchy of the neighborhood's adult world. Damien, the ruthless manager of the grocery hub, wasn't just a random boss. For the past 3 months, he had been dating Bianca's mother, Monica. Monica was a fierce, protective woman who adored her daughter and blind trusted her completely. Damien, wanting to impress Monica and secure his place in her life, treated Bianca like royalty. If Bianca complained about someone, Damien made it his personal mission to make that person's life miserable. One afternoon, Naomi was at the library stacking books when her friend Sarah walked in, looking nervous. Sarah glanced around before leaning over the counter. "Naomi, you need to be careful," Sarah whispered. "Bianca is furious about you and Isaac. She told her mom that Isaac has been making her feel uncomfortable at the store and that you're encouraging him. Monica is losing her mind. She told Damien to keep an eye on Isaac, and you know how Damien is. He's just looking for an excuse to fire him to look like a hero to Monica." Naomi felt the blood drain from her face. Isaac hasn't done anything. He barely talks to anyone at work. He just does his job. "It doesn't matter," Sarah said, shaking her head. "Bianca is telling everyone that she's going to confront Isaac at the store this weekend. She wants a scene. She wants to humiliate him, and she wants you to watch." Naomi's mind raced. A public scene at the store would be fatal. Damien was already looking for a reason to cut labor costs, and if a teenager's drama disrupted his business and upset his girlfriend's daughter, Isaac would be fired on the spot. And if Isaac was fired, he wouldn't make his housing deposit. His scholarship would be forfeited. His entire future would be flushed down the drain, all because of a high school crush and a vindictive best friend. That night, Naomi couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, looking across the narrow alley at Isaac's dark bedroom. She loved him. She knew it now, deep in her bones. She wanted to tell him the truth, wanted to hold his hand and face the storm together. But as she looked at the faded paint on his house, at the rusted old car his father drove, she realized the brutal reality of their situation. Isaac was fragile right now. He was running on black coffee and 4 hours of sleep a night. If she told him what Bianca was planning, he would try to defend Naomi. He would confront Damien, and his pride would get him fired. The only way to save Isaac's future was to make sure there was no drama for Bianca to exploit. And the only way to do that was to remove herself from the equation entirely. She had to make Bianca believe she had won. The next morning, the heat wave broke, replaced by a dark, oppressive storm that rolled over the city. Naomi walked down to the grocery hub, her heart heavy as lead. She found Isaac stocking the cereal aisle, a faint smile spreading across his face when he saw her. "Hey," he said, stepping down from a stool. "I was hoping I'd see you today. I got an extra shift tonight, which means I'm officially halfway to the deposit goal." Naomi forced her expression to remain completely blank, her heart breaking with every syllable she uttered. "That's great, Isaac, but listen, I think we need to stop talking." Isaac froze, a box of cornflakes hovering in midair. "What? What do you mean?" "I mean, we've been spending too much time together," Naomi said, her voice hollow and detached. She hated herself in that moment, hated the way his smile instantly vanished, replaced by profound confusion. "It's summer, Isaac. You're leaving in a few weeks anyway. I don't want things to get messy. I think it's better if we just keep our distance." "Messy?" Isaac repeated, dropping the box onto the shelf. He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers, desperate for a sign that she was joking. "Naomi, what are you talking about? 2 days ago you said—" "2 days ago was a mistake," Naomi interrupted, her voice sharp, cutting him off before she could lose her nerve. "I was just being neighborly, but honestly, I have my own life to worry about. Bianca and the others, they're my friends. I don't want drama over some neighborhood guy who's leaving anyway." The word guy stung him like a physical blow. Isaac recoiled, his jaw tightening. The vulnerability in his eyes hardened into a cold, defensive wall. "Some neighborhood guy? Is that what I am to you?" "Just focus on your job, Isaac," Naomi said, turning away so he wouldn't see the tears welling up in her eyes. "Good luck with college." As she walked out of the store, the rain began to pour, matching the tears streaming down her face. She had done it. She had pushed him away. She had broken his heart, and in doing so, she believed she had defused the bomb. But as she stepped onto the sidewalk, she saw Bianca standing under the awning of the bakery across the street, watching her with a smug, victorious grin. Naomi thought she had ended the war, completely unaware that Bianca had no intention of stopping until Naomi was completely ruined. 3 days passed in an agonizing blur. Isaac completely ignored Naomi, looking straight through her whenever they crossed paths on the street. It tore Naomi apart, but she took comfort in the fact that the neighborhood grapevine had gone quiet. Bianca seemed satisfied. She was seen everywhere with a triumphant smile, telling anyone who would listen that Naomi had finally realized her place. But the peace was an illusion. On Friday night, Naomi was at home helping her mother fold laundry when her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number, but the message made her blood run cold. "If you want to see your little boyfriend keep his precious job, you better get down to the store break room right now." Bianca's mom just found out about the money. Naomi didn't think twice. She grabbed her jacket and ran out into the pouring rain, sprinting the 3 blocks to the grocery hub. The store was quiet, the late-night shoppers sparse. She pushed past the checkout counters, her boots squeaking loudly on the linoleum, and marched straight for the back corridor. That brought her to the moment in the break room, standing between a hostile Damien and a deeply hurt Isaac. "We're leaving," Naomi said again, her voice firmer this time, trying to pull Isaac toward the door. "Hold on a minute," Damien said, stepping in front of the exit, blocking their path. He took a slow sip from a paper cup, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Nobody is leaving. In fact, Isaac, you might want to start packing up your things. I just had a very interesting conversation with Monica." Isaac looked from Damien to Naomi, his confusion turning into simmering anger. "What is going on here? Naomi, why are you here? You told me you didn't care." "Isaac, please, just don't say anything," Naomi pleaded, her eyes begging him. "Oh, he can say whatever he wants, but it won't change the facts," Damien sneered, pulling a printed sheet of paper from his pocket. "Monica told me all about your little financial situation, Isaac. And she also told me that you've been skimming from the cash register to pay for your college housing. She said her daughter Bianca saw you do it." "That's a lie!" Isaac shouted, stepping forward, his fists clenching. "I've never stolen a dime in my life. Look at the cameras. Check the logs." "The cameras in the back hallway have been down since Tuesday. Convenient for you, isn't it?" Damien replied smoothly. "And since Monica is my future wife, I take her word over a part-time stock boy. I'm firing you for gross misconduct, Isaac. And don't bother asking for a reference. I'll make sure the university hears about this little incident, too." Naomi felt the world tilt on its axis. Bianca hadn't just wanted to break them up. She wanted to destroy Isaac out of pure spite because he had preferred Naomi. And by using her mother Monica and the corrupt, eager-to-please Damien, she had crafted a perfect lie that Isaac couldn't disprove. In that moment of absolute panic, Naomi's eyes locked onto the silver Ferris wheel keychain sitting on the break room table again. A memory flashed in her mind, a memory from Tuesday afternoon, the very day the cameras allegedly went down. She remembered seeing Bianca lurking around the back of the store while Naomi was walking home from the library. Bianca had been talking to one of the older stock boys, a guy who owed her money. Naomi looked at Damien, her fear vanishing, replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. She realized what she had to do. To save Isaac, she couldn't just play defense anymore. She had to take the blame for everything. "He didn't do it, Damien," Naomi said, her voice echoing in the small room. Isaac whipped his head around to look at her. "Naomi, don't." "Shut up, Isaac," Naomi snapped, looking him dead in the eye with a look of manufactured contempt. "Stop trying to play the hero. It's over." She turned back to Damien, crossing her arms. "Isaac didn't steal anything. I did." The room went dead silent, save for the hum of the vending machine. Damien narrowed his eyes, his smile faltering slightly. "You? You don't even work here." "No, but I visit Isaac all the time," Naomi lied smoothly, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. "And on Tuesday afternoon, while he was in the back freezer, I used his keys to open the register at lane 4. I took $500. I needed the money for my mom's rent. Bianca didn't see Isaac do anything. She saw me. She's just trying to protect me because we used to be friends, so she blamed Isaac instead. Naomi, what are you doing? Isaac screamed, grabbing her shoulder, his face twisted in horror. Are you insane? You didn't do that. Damien, she's lying. I'm not lying, Naomi said, coldly shaking his hand off her shoulder. Why do you think I told you I wanted nothing to do with you, Isaac? Because I used you. I knew you were distracted with your scholarship, and you were the perfect scapegoat. I took the money, and that keychain on the table, I took that from Bianca's room weeks ago. I dropped it in the office when I was jimmying the lock. Damien looked at the keychain, then at Naomi. He didn't care about the truth. He cared about an easy resolution that made him look good to Monica without causing a massive legal headache for the store. A confession from a non-employee meant he could just ban Naomi, protect his girlfriend's daughter from any messy investigation, and keep his store records clean. Well, Damien said, a cruel grin returning to his face. That changes things. Isaac, it seems your little girlfriend is a thief. You're lucky I'm a generous man. You keep your job, but if I ever see her within a block of this store again, I'm calling the police. Now, both of you, get out of my sight. Naomi didn't wait. She turned and walked out of the break room, her head held high, ignoring Isaac's frantic shouts behind her. She walked out into the pouring rain, the cold water soaking through her clothes, feeling a strange, hollow sense of victory. She had saved his dream. But as she heard Isaac's angry footsteps catching up to her on the slick pavement, she was totally unaware that the hardest part of her sacrifice was about to begin. Naomi, stop! Isaac yelled, grabbing her arm and spinning her around in the middle of the empty, rain-slicked street. The street lights cast long, distorted shadows around them. His face was a mask of anger, betrayal, and profound hurt. Why did you do that? Why would you lie like that? I know you didn't take that money. I told you the truth, Isaac, Naomi said, forcing her voice to remain ice cold, though her soul was screaming. I used you. Just let it go. No, I don't believe you, Isaac shouted over the roar of the downpour. You're many things, Naomi, but you're not a thief, and you don't care about some neighborhood guy enough to ruin your own reputation for him. Tell me what's really happening. You want the truth? Naomi said, stepping close to him, her eyes fierce, masking the agonizing pain in her heart. The truth is, I don't love you, Isaac. I never did. You were just a project to me, a distraction for the summer. And now that you're leaving, I'm bored. If you want to ruin your life by arguing with Damien and losing your scholarship, go ahead. Go back in there and tell him I'm lying. See what happens to your room and board money. See if your parents can afford to keep you here when you lose everything. Isaac stared at her, his chest heaving. The rain poured down his face, mixing with the tears he was trying so hard to hide. The absolute certainty in her cold voice finally broke through his defenses. He let go of her arm, taking a step back, looking at her as if she were a monster, a stranger he had never known. I thought you were the one person who actually cared about me, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm. I loved you, Naomi. I would have stayed here for you. Then you're a fool, Naomi said. She turned her back on him and walked away into the darkness, her fists clenched so tightly her fingernails drew blood. She didn't look back, not even when she heard his heavy, defeated footsteps heading in the opposite direction. The remaining weeks of August passed in a quiet, agonizing countdown. Naomi became a ghost in her own neighborhood. She resigned from the library to avoid any chance of bumping into Bianca or Monica. She stayed inside her house, helping her mother, watching the world through the dusty blinds of her bedroom window. Bianca had won completely. With Naomi out of the picture and branded as a neighborhood outcast who had allegedly stolen money, Bianca took her place by Isaac's side. She was there to comfort him in his heartbreak, there to walk him to work, there to help him pack his bags for college. Naomi watched them from her window, Isaac looking hollow and quiet, moving like a machine, while Bianca chattered away, completely oblivious to the wreckage she had caused. Naomi knew that Isaac believed the lie. He hated her now, and that hatred was the shield that kept him safe, the shield that kept his job secure and his future intact. It was a heavy price to pay, but every time she saw him carry a new box of textbooks into his house, she knew she would make the same choice 1,000 times over. Finally, the day of departure arrived. The late August sun was hot and bright, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood as a taxi pulled up outside Isaac's house. Naomi stood by her window, her forehead pressed against the cool glass. She watched as Isaac's parents hugged him tightly, his mother wiping away tears. Bianca was there too, wearing a bright dress, throwing her arms around his neck for a long, dramatic goodbye. Isaac patted her back gently, but even from a distance, Naomi could see the lack of warmth in his gesture. He looked tired, his eyes scanning the street one last time. For a brief, terrifying second, Isaac's gaze drifted up to Naomi's window. Naomi didn't move. She didn't hide. She just stood there, letting him see her. Isaac paused, his hand on the door handle of the taxi. He looked at her for what felt like an eternity, his expression unreadable, a mixture of lingering hurt, confusion, and a quiet, profound sadness. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just closed his eyes, got into the back seat of the cab, and pulled the door shut. The taxi pulled away from the curb, its tires humming against the asphalt as it headed toward the highway, carrying Isaac toward a life of brilliance, opportunity, and freedom. A life he would never know was paid for by the quiet heartbreak of the girl he left behind. Naomi let out a breath she felt like she had been holding all summer, a single tear slipping down her cheek as the taxi disappeared around the corner. She turned away from the window, walking back into the quiet shadow of her room, knowing that some love stories aren't meant to be written in beautiful words, but in the silent, invisible sacrifices that keep the other person alive.